It begins not with a gunshot or a scream, but with a train. The year is 1922. Washington, D.C., the capital of the United States, hums with the nervous energy of a nation caught between prohibition speakeasies and looming depression. In a quiet Georgetown neighborhood, a maid discovers a door left ajar. The house inside looks as if its owner had simply stepped out for a moment, but the silence is too heavy, the air too still. Upstairs in the bedroom of Colonel Thomas Baxter, one of America's most connected men, the maid finds something that should never have existed. A body half-dressed sprawled across silk sheets. His skull fractured, his mouth frozen mid-breath. No sign of forced entry, no struggle, just death. And yet what was truly shocking wasn't that Baxter was dead. It was who he was. Because this wasn't just a decorated war hero. This wasn't just a man who dined with presidents and whispered with senators. Colonel Baxter was the keeper of secrets, an intelligence officer whose files contained the private lives of Washington's elite, senators, cabinet members, foreign diplomats. He knew who drank where, who loved whom, who could be bought, and who must never be exposed. The kind of man who didn't die in silence, the kind of man who was erased. At first, the press tried to sell the story as a burglary gone wrong. The Washington Post ran a 2-paragraph column the next day. Retired Army officer. Found dead in home, police suspect, robbery. But to anyone who knew Baxter, the lie was obvious. Nothing in the house was taken. His wallet remained on the nightstand. His watch still ticked on his wrist. The only thing missing were the files, hundreds of pages of typed reports, coded letters, and secret photographs he had kept locked in a leather trunk. By the time police searched the house, the trunk was gone. And yet a rumor began to spread almost instantly. Not from the newspapers, but from the corridors of power. A rumor that the files contained photographs that could have brought down entire political dynasties. One in particular. To understand why Baxter's death mattered, you have to understand the world of Washington in the early 1920s. On the surface, it was a city of monuments and marble. But beneath the surface, the nation's capital was a shadow kingdom. A place where prohibition forced the powerful underground. Senators drank gin in secret parlors. Judges kept mistresses in hidden apartments. And government officials formed clubs where anything could be bought if the price was right. Baxter wasn't just part of this world, he was its archivist. During the Great War, he had been assigned to military intelligence, responsible for monitoring morale among officers. In practice, that meant spying on their private lives. And Baxter never stopped. After the war, he continued collecting, building what some later called the Black Diary of Washington. According to whispers, it wasn't politics that filled most of its pages. It was desire, who loved in secret, who betrayed their vows, who was vulnerable to blackmail, and in an era when even the rumor of homosexuality could end a career. Baxter's files were nuclear. 2 weeks after his death, a second body surfaced. This time not in a Georgetown townhouse, but in the Potomac River. A young man, no older than 24, dressed in the uniform of a Navy clerk. Official cause of death, drowning. But on his torso were marks, rope burns, bruises across the ribs. The kind that suggested restraint, not accident. No connection was made publicly, but privately inside the Navy Department everyone knew. The young man had been one of Baxter's informants. By now the press was starting to sense something was wrong. A single burglary, perhaps, but a decorated colonel and a young Navy clerk, both dead within days, both tied by whispers to the same circle of men. Even the most cautious reporters knew this was a story. And yet every time an article was drafted, it was killed before print. Editors received phone calls. Advertisers threatened to pull funding. One journalist later wrote in his unpublished memoir, "It was the only time in my career when my editor told me directly, 'We are not allowed to touch this story. Not now, not ever,' which only made the whispers grow louder." By the summer of 1922, Washington society was in full panic. Ministers warned from pulpits about moral rot at the heart of government. The FBI quietly compiled its own reports, labeling the scandal a potential threat to national security. And in smoke-filled rooms, the question was asked aloud, what if the president himself is implicated? Because one of the rumors, the most dangerous of them all was that among Baxter's missing photographs was an image of a man every American knew, a man who could not afford scandal, the President of the United States. Officially, history books say President Warren G. Harding died of a heart attack in San Francisco in 1923. Unofficially, conspiracy theorists have argued for a century that his death was far from natural. Harding's administration was already drowning in corruption. The infamous Teapot Dome scandal, illegal oil leases, bribery at the highest levels. But what if corruption wasn't the only secret threatening to surface? What if Colonel Baxter's files held proof of something far more explosive? Something that could not just topple a presidency, but shake the moral foundation of America itself? The timing is suggestive. Baxter is murdered in 1922. His files vanish. His informant is found dead in the Potomac. And within a year, the president himself is dead on the other side of the country, his personal doctor burning, papers in the hotel fireplace, while the First Lady refuses an autopsy. Too many coincidences for comfort. So what really happened to Colonel Baxter? The official record says his case remains unsolved, but fragments have leaked over the decades. A declassified FBI memo from the 1940s notes suppressed documents relating to a military intelligence officer killed under mysterious circumstances. A private diary from one of Harding's cabinet members mentions the Georgetown affair, a scandal quietly resolved by removing certain elements. And then there's the testimony of a fisherman, yes, a fisherman again, who, decades later, told his grandson about a night in 1922 when he was paid to row a leather trunk down the Potomac and sink it near Roosevelt Island, a trunk that matched the description of Baxter's missing files. The grandson repeated the story in the 1970s. Divers searched the river. Nothing was found, but even today, some historians believe that trunk still lies somewhere beneath the murky waters of the Potomac, a time bomb of secrets waiting to be dredged up. What makes the story of Colonel Baxter so haunting isn't just the murder. It's the silence that followed. A silence enforced not just by fear, but by power. In America, we like to believe our darkest scandals eventually come to light. Watergate, Iran-Contra, the Pentagon Papers. But this one didn't. Instead, it disappeared. No official inquiry, no justice, no history books. Just a ghost story whispered among archivists and conspiracy theorists. Too dangerous to confirm, too tempting to forget. And yet every few years a hint emerges. A classified file misfiled in the National Archives. A stray memo in an FBI release. A family story passed down in secret. Each one pointing back to the same conclusion, that Baxter's murder wasn't about robbery or madness or chance. It was about control. Control of a narrative. Control of a nation's image. Because if the truth had come out that the highest levels of government were entangled in forbidden desires, that a president himself may have been compromised, then the America of the 1920s might have fractured under the weight of its own hypocrisy. And so the files vanished, the bodies were buried, the story was erased. But here's the thing about secrets. They never stay buried forever. In 2007, a group of researchers petitioned the government to release all classified files related to the Harding administration. Most were declassified, but one small set remained sealed, marked sensitive to national security. Nearly a century after the events, what could possibly be so dangerous, so threatening to America in the 21st century that it cannot be released? Some say it's evidence of corruption, others evidence of treason. But for those who know the whispers, can only be one thing: Colonel Baxter's missing files. The Black Diary of Washington. The photographs that could have destroyed a presidency. The proof of a murder that was never supposed to happen. And the scandal that America still cannot admit.